Dave from Sensible Tech, welcome to LOTI HQ. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those who may not be familiar with your work.
Yeah, so right now I am running Sensible Tech, which is my own sort of freelance consultancy business, sort of advising local government on how it can best use digital and technology and data to improve the services that they offer to citizens. But before that, I had a wide range of jobs across local government in digital and technology and various other things. Generally speaking though, looking to modernise and change things for the better.
So clearly lots of demand from lots of local authorities right now for help with digital, and I think if we can start with that question, I noticed that lots of organisations seem to have different interpretations of what digital means, and even within the same council maybe different interpretations. Sometimes it's, we're talking about a website or some apps. Some people seem to think it's synonymous with the IT department. Others have a much more expansive definition. Does it matter if we haven't pinned it down?
Yeah, so actually I do think it matters. I think it's really important that organisations are absolutely aligned on what they're talking about when they're talking about digital. You and I probably have experienced this in the past whereby you've been sat in a meeting room where everybody appears to be agreeing with one another, and yet you've got that nagging feeling in the back of your head that we're not quite,
really.
Yeah, exactly, we're not quite on the same page here. So it really, really does matter. And I think that, at the outset, it's really, really important that any organisation that's embarking on, some major change programmes is absolutely clear about what it is that we're talking about, what's in scope, what isn't in scope, what it is that we're actually talking about here and focusing in on, just so that, everybody is absolutely clear about and those expectations are managed really in terms of what this work is going to actually achieve.
So if we're going to try and advocate for any definition that organisations should adopt, which one would you choose?
Well, the one that I always reach to, I think, is that which Tom Loosemore came up with. Now, Tom was one of the sort of original founders of the Government Digital Service, and he's come up with this fantastic definition. Basically reads that digital is applying the culture, processes, business models and technologies of the internet era to meet people's raised expectations. And that for me, is a great way of really sort of describing the whole scope of what we're talking about here.
So that's much broader than just talking about the tech.
It absolutely is, absolutely is. And what's really interesting as well about the definition is the order in which these things come up. So the first things that are being talked about are culture and processes. So with culture, the culture of the internet is open and it's transparent and it's collaborative and it's really creative as well. It's also sort of very, in terms of the way that products and services are developed in the internet era, they're very user-centred and they're delivered in an agile, iterative fashion. So they're continuously being improved. And that's a really, really important thing for councils that want to be successful with digital, that they take on some of that culture and they live that culture as well. And with processes, sometimes local authorities, like lots of bits of government and things, can be sort of associated with slightly old-fashioned processes and ways of working, whether it's still doing sort of paper-based forms or information having to be rekeyed from one system to another and things just taking a long time. Well, compare that to internet age organisations like the Bank Monzo, for example, where you can apply and open a bank account within minutes just by using your phone. You don't need to talk to a human being, you don't need to sign any bits of paper or anything like that. And these are the kind of processes that people are becoming used to and wanting to see, not just from companies like that, but also from their public institutions as well.
It reminds me of a point that no amount of technology makes up for a bad process. So, just a simple Excel spreadsheet and the best process in the world is likely to outdo, really, really smart tech. Absolutely. So I think the next one was around business models. What role does that play in this definition?
Yeah, so business models, or perhaps in the public sector context, we can talk about operating models, which might make a bit more sense to people. This is really like the big picture thinking around, if you were to sort of redesign a service or maybe even an entire organisation from the ground up for the internet era. So taking as a first principle the fact that not everyone, but the vast majority of people have got access to the internet almost all the time because they're carrying it around in their pockets on their phones. How does that change the way that you design your organisation and your services? So, some of the new sort of business models that are emerging as a result of this or have emerged are things like Uber, which is a taxi, one of the biggest taxi companies in the world. They don't own any cars, or Airbnb, likewise, huge hotel chain. owns no buildings. You know, that kind of thinking is really, really important, I think, if we're looking to really sort of enable local public services to meet the challenges that it faces. We're going to need to stop applying sort of new technology to old ways of thinking and actually do the new ways of thinking and use the tech to sort of really implement those.
So we've got to be much more imaginative on what we apply the tech to. But the tech was the last in the definition, so what do we do with technology? It's in there, but at the end.
Yeah, it's in there, but it's at the end. But it's really important that it is in there, I think. So a lot of folk do like to say that digital is nothing to do with technology. Well, actually, that's not true, is it? Because it is a bit about technology, and it's important that it's in there. And it's really important, I think, particularly for those in leadership positions, that they actually take ownership of the fact that, you know, the technology their organisations use is really, really important, and it's vital to get that right if we're going to succeed with a digital transformation.
And enables those operating models, enables
Exactly.
the business processes and that cultural change as well.
Absolutely right. And then the definition closes itself off, obviously, by talking about the internet age, which runs as a thread throughout all of this. But also it's about meeting people's expectations, and that really is the reason why we're doing this. So people, our residents and businesses and communities that local authorities are serving, they're used to receiving these services delivered in a different way from all these other organisations, and they're going to start expecting that from councils, and if they don't get it, they're going to be unhappy. And what's interesting is it's not just those external users, but it's also your internal users. So again, staff coming into the workplace now are going to expect systems and processes and things to work in a digital way and that's appropriate for the internet era.
And vital for hiring staff and
Exactly.
retaining staff, because we've got to treat them and equip them with the tools that they need.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So last point on this would be, imagine we've got a council who has utterly embraced this definition. What in practice does that mean for them? What would it change about the way they think about digital?
Yeah, so I think what it enables you to do is for the entire organisation to get bought into the change that you're wanting to implement as a result of doing this work around
Not
digital.
just the IT team.
Not just the IT team. So it makes it absolutely clear to everybody that kind of everything's on the table here, that, you know, we're not just going to be looking at your tech, we're not just going to be looking at your data, or we're not just going to be sort of giving you tablets to do your work on or whatever it might be, that actually we are going to be looking at your processes, we are going to be looking to change the culture of the organisation as a whole, that everything is involved in this and everybody's got a role to play in it as well.